Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of What They Won't Say. This is your girl, Courtney Lynette. I am here with
UA
and
Just Kevin.
and today we have a special guest. I'm going to let her introduce herself. Just start off with your name.
Hey, I'm Jasmine Brown.
And Jasmine, tell us a little bit about what you do.
I started a nonprofit last year teaching financial literacy to students. I started with high school students, but I've just recently also gone to middle school as well.
That's awesome. So, what is the name of your program?
It's called Facts for Youth. FACT stands for Finance, Athletic, and Career Training Services. The C also stands for college as well, but just getting high schoolers ready for that next step after graduation.
Awesome. So, if you guys haven't gathered yet, today's episode is going to be about financial stability and financial health in our community today. You want to say something?
No, I was just saying baby monkey. She did that.
Buddy Baby Buggy Bumpers.
That part.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Jasmine, tell us how this became a passion for you.
Okay, so I grew up with a dad that was a financial advisor for professional athletes. So even as a child, I was being quizzed on stock symbols, and I knew what the stock market being bearish or bullish meant. It was just something that was taught in our home. But I didn't realize that was a luxury until probably about college, when I had a roommate who got a credit card one day on the Brickyard at NC State, came to the room with like 6 Nordstrom bags, and had no idea that she had to pay that back. She just thought she got free money with a credit card. Right. So I didn't realize that, if it's not taught at home, and, finding out that it's not really taught in schools either, that, a lot of especially our community is not really learning that.
Absolutely.
So I also coach swimming. So I have a big group of 55 swim team kids. And so just working with high schoolers and then having that passion for teaching financial literacy is just kind of how it all started.
Absolutely. So I think we all know or have been put in a position where somebody's parent has put a bill or ran their child's credit card in the past. So tell us, well, not Jasmine, but Jasmine might know somebody. We've all either been there or know someone who is in that position. So tell us how things of that nature can impact you financially as you're getting older and going into college and getting out on your own.
Yeah, so one of the things that I talk about is generational wealth, right? It's predominantly skewed among races with generational wealth as financial literacy relates to it, right? So talking to kids just about credit in general, especially at the high school level, going to counties like, cities like Lumberton, which is in the poorest county in North Carolina, they don't really know or understand what credit is. So giving them that understanding, that baseline to start off, to then go home and be like, Mom, Dad, I learned about credit today, and then finding out, they might have that in their own name and they had no idea. Again, that basic blanket of knowledge, right, kind of gets your mind thinking, okay, well, if I do have a credit card in my name, how can I now build my credit from that, right? So then you can, they always say credit is like the key to everything financial, right? Having a good credit score, right? So just getting them thinking about stuff like that. And I give kids tips on like how to use credit wisely and that kind of thing, just so that they understand that credit's not really a scary thing unless you're already behind. Right. So getting out in front of it kind of helps with that.
You want to do a testimony?
I'm just saying, what?
Malik
It's
over there,
nothing
he
worse.
can't say
I'm
it.
that serious, but it's nothing worse than having a good job and making good money, having a bad credit score. It's terrible.
It's tough.
Yes, it is tough in these streets.
Because you'll still get doors closed on you.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know what that's like. I don't really use the credit that I have. I don't have any. I'm 30 years old. I don't have any credit cards. Me and my wife bought our house 3 years ago. It was our first major purchase. The only debt we really had is like most of us our age. Student loan debt. I'm not talking loud enough. Oh, splat! That's crazy. I feel like I'm always screaming. But no, like I said, the only debt we really have as adults is student loan debt. Beyond that, it was when we decided to buy the house. They said we did have to build credit. Like we had to, get credit cards, small ones. establish the routine, I guess, of paying certain things down to certain levels. But he's right. It ain't nothing. There is nothing worse. Like I know a lot of people in my position or in my, I guess my demographic, my peers. They look at me as though I'm something special or different. When it's like, no, man. In ways, yeah, we did get lucky, and that I didn't completely start as far behind as some of my counterparts. But on the flip side of that, we ran into some people that were able to deliver us information that we didn't have to begin with, and it gave us a jump start, so to speak. Because really, it's about the information. Like she said, it sounds like a scary thing. Credit sounds like a scary thing. Finances are a scary thing, especially when they become your own and you're responsible for all the decisions that come with that and all the consequences that come with those decisions. Like it does become a scary thing. But once the more information you get, like they say, knowledge is power. The more information you get, the easier it is to kind of navigate the waters.
Right. I sure wish. Ooh. What?
You sure wish what? You
sure wish, like, as a kid, like, okay, so of course I joined the military, and that's like the worst. These people see these people that just got into the military, and I still said, oh, I wasn't gonna do this, that, and third. And here I go, I end up with a card, a credit card, see that? And just spending, not knowing what I'm doing, not paying my stuff on time, just doing terrible. And my credit score is slowly going crazy, declining. And I just got myself in a position where my credit score is going back up. Oh, that's a terrible feeling. Like I said, if I knew then what I know now, even in high school, I'd have been a lot more cautious and a lot more smarter, I would have been a lot smarter with decisions like that.
So, Jasmine, let me ask you this. Somebody that is in not necessarily Malik's position right now, but in that step before where they're still basically fucking up and doing and out here spending money like they got it.
Right.
Like when they get to the point where they're like, all right, man, I want real life and I want to build real things. What would you suggest the first step they take after acknowledging, hey man,
I have a problem.
I'm fucking up.
Right. So one of the things that I try and stress every time I talk to teenagers is having more doesn't solve all of your problems, right? So a lot of people think, well, if I could just get, a little bit more of my paycheck every month, or if I could just win the lottery, or you know what I mean? Like it'll just solve all my money problems, and that's not necessarily the case, because if you can't manage what you have now, getting more is not gonna solve that problem, right? So if you come to that decision where you're like, okay, I wanna make this change, then I would honestly tell you to just start to learn how to money manage, right? And figuring out, okay, well, this extra that I'm spending on Hulu, but I also have Netflix, like, take that and put it towards the bills, you know what I mean, and paying off that credit. So it's just little stuff like that, just basic money management.
Look at this
So
man,
important.
learning something.
Right.
But my Hulu though?
No, you can't afford it all. Something gotta go. Like,
Yeah,
somebody
that's the other
gotta
thing.
go.
So,
I'm just
like,
playing.
I have Sprint, which most of the time I
Get
don't
Hulu for
like,
free.
but with Sprint you get Hulu for free, right? So looking at deals like that, if you super want your Hulu and you're like, this is not going away, then maybe switch your carrier to Sprint and you get it for free and you knock down a bill.
Because T-Mobile is only giving us Netflix,
Oh, dang.
and Netflix made babies.
See, we got Netflix and Hulu. We just got the Hulu, Disney, ESPN package.
See,
It's
so y'all
$13.
good.
But it's
We all
$13. Like it's 13 like Disney Plus right now. They're giving it out like Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN the bundle for 13. I had to
He out
cancel
here
Hulu.
promoting
But
somebody.
You don't have cable, though, right? Like,
hell no. If you got cable, you rich. Like I ain't cable. I ain't got have cable.
Because I got the Spectrum app on my phone right now. So
What?
sorry.
So you got cable.
I got cable, but
See, I don't
I
have
also use other people's Netflix and Hulu.
But so you
Those ain't my bills.
So you stealing. So you can manage your money or you can steal.
Well, all of my extra money goes towards food. So that's what
Right.
I've learned. I'm taking the first step. My little extra money that I get, each paycheck goes to me eating out. So I need to stop doing
How
that.
often do you see people wasting money on food? How often is that
Yes,
occur?
It's very often.
It's something that I feel like it cripples our generation when it comes to how
Yeah.
we spend money on eating.
Absolutely.
Shoot, this weekend alone. Whew.
Really? You keep making sounds but not using
I'm
words.
sorry, I don't need to use words. They understand. I guarantee you, everybody
No.
here, when
That's
I
the
said,
point of us doing this.
when
to
I
paint
said
the
food this
pictures.
weekend alone, everybody was like,
I know. I stayed my ass in the
Child.
house this
Same.
weekend.
I'm telling you, sound say enough. I'm telling you.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mm.
I told y'all we needed a soundboard. I told
I
y'all.
don't know. I don't know what that means.
I just know the second that a paycheck hit, and we're
Spend
supposed to
that
be like,
shit.
oh yeah, we're supposed to be saving this, that, and the third. Da da da. Paycheck. Man, I don't feel like cooking. Ooh, girl, what you want? Because I was thinking the same thing.
And they got a household of 4.
Yes.
Oh.
And my son running around, Big Dono. You know, it's like he could smell it.
And you know it's a problem when your kid, hey, you got paid today, right? Can
Yep.
we go to Denny's?
That's where I go. I got paid today. You didn't. Get your broke ass out my face. All right.
So, Jasmine, tell us because you're only one person and it sounds like you're traveling quite a bit. If you aren't able to make it to certain schools or events that you would like to do this, how can someone get in touch with you to get tips and tricks for their kids?
Yeah, so you can, of course, email me. I haven't turned anyone around yet. So I've gone to every school that's reached out to me. I've done a lot of the reaching out, trying to get to some schools, because I have certain counties that I'm really trying to hit over other counties. So reaching out to them and trying to get in, and there's a wall up for some schools. Unfortunately, the counties I'm trying to get into, I think they're doing enough to say that they're doing something, but to ask them to take a step further, they're like,
Right.
not so much, right? Because what I found, the counties that I want to go into, they've got the highest level of poverty, the highest level of minorities, highest dropout rates. 6 of the 17 counties I want to go to are on the top 10 most dangerous cities in North Carolina.
You want
However,
to name like 2 or 3?
yeah, I can't.
Is Cumberland and Durham in that thing?
Durham is not, Cumberland is not, but
What?
Scotland,
Okay.
Anson, Robeson Down, they're all kind of clustered together, right? However, they have some of the best athletics.
Go
Right,
figure.
so-
Right.
So
That's how
it's you
statistics
see,
Big country
right.
farm kids.
So you see that there's a bigger issue here than financial literacy and the lack thereof.
The kids is going to get drafted into the NFL and get all this money and not have enough credit to do anything.
Little
with it.
Johnny.
I am going to
Uh-oh, Johnny back.
Give me, hey man, let me slide you this $5,000 real quick.
It happens though, but honestly, to get in touch with me, it's info@factsforyouthnc.com. It's _factsforyouth on Instagram. I'm on those heavy. I check it all the time. It goes straight to my phone. So I really do try to talk to anybody that will allow me to listen. And everywhere I've been, you'd be surprised how engaged the kids are, how interested they are in what I'm talking about. They take more away from that little hour and a half that I have with them, and I can tell. They're asking me questions. They're using their phones as calculators, and they're not like sneaking on Snapchat. Do you know what I mean?
That's
Like
awesome.
I stay very engaging. I think a lot of times, especially in these counties, they think of finances and they think old white man, right, in a classroom teaching them.
Right.
So instead, we're using Skittles to learn about budgeting, or just random stuff, giving them fake occupations with a fake husband or wife, and so they're so into it, and it gives me a lot of joy just watching it.
That's awesome. Do you perform these services for adults? I'm asking for a friend.
Right. No. So in my growth plan for facts. So my issue has been feeling like I'm beating a dead horse, right? In these counties that I'm in, if I go in and talk about credit, and they go home and they're like, Mom, Dad, I learned about credit or investing, and their parents go, we don't do that here. It happens too often, right? So then it's like, okay,
We don't
so
have the money for that,
because
or
their
things like
parents
that.
don't know about it,
Right.
right? It's like they're engaged and they're learning, and they go home and they're like, all right, and they forget everything we just talked about. So my growth plan is to also include a parent's workout, so that when they come and drop their kids off, instead of dropping their kids off, they're staying and they're going with a certified financial planner or whoever to talk about like topics that relate more to the adults than the kids.
Right.
Maybe do not as engaging, like Skittles and stuff.
Well,
but
I'll come for myself, and I like Skittles. I'm just trying. I want to go and learn
Learn
too.
something.
And
I'm
we-
about to be 30. I need
and
to
still
get my
some
finances
Skittles.
together.
Still get some Skittles.
Yes, I love Skittles.
Is
Who
that-
doesn't love Skittles?
Are you getting your finances together because Skittles is the thing?
No, but I would be lying if I said it didn't entice me more.
I got a question. These two. But you said there are like barriers keeping you from getting into these other counties.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly are the barriers? Just out of curiosity, just like if you go to a school and you say, hey, I want to teach kids about financial literacy, this, that, and third, what do they say to you?
Right. So most of the time I don't get an answer. It's gotten to a point where I've reached out to principals, business teachers, PTSA, the counselors. I promise you, it's gonna get to a point where they're like, I got this email from this girl, Jasmine Brown. You got that email too?
I know, I got it too,
You might
man.
as well just bring her in. I want to get to that point to where
That's
you can't ignore me anymore.
Because you're not really asking them for anything. You're
I'm
just
doing it
asking them for
completely
their
free.
time. Right. So you're just asking them for their time.
Right.
So
it's
all
just
your principals and teachers and
That's-
admin,
That's my
look,
favorite.
she's here.
That's my favorite price, man.
Right. You getting a free service. She don't want nothing but to show up. She not asking you for gas money. She not asking you to pay her. She just want an hour and a half. Like, come on, y'all have dumbass assemblies longer than that.
I was
Yeah.
talking about breaking generational curses.
There, right there.
Can't break a generational
With
curse. You don't get the information you need.
Did you get like? Have you tried to like get recommendations from the schools that you have already taught, like so they could send on the information, like, hey,
Right.
she taught us here. I feel like she would be good for you.
Yeah,
Very
so going to Lumberton, actually, I met a wonderful woman. She is the career development coordinator for Lumberton High School, but she also every Tuesday works at Lumberton Junior High School, and that's how I ended up getting into the middle school. And she's tried to blast me out to any and everyone that will listen to her.
Shout out.
Yeah, so with that, I think Lumberton's actually going to be like the county that I'm most in, at least for
Mhm.
now. Just because I'm making connections there and reaching out to people, and I'll eventually do a book signing there as well. So it's a lot of fun, especially to hear how, because she doesn't take the class, she's just there watching, but she sees how engaged the kids are too, and she's like, no, this is a service that everyone needs.
Right.
So it's nice.
Yeah, really.
And this is kids who most likely don't like sitting in classroom settings. So to say that they're getting engaged, that's awesome. I think what you're doing is really good, and it's good for the community because, this new generation is dumb. Like,
Jesus!
I'm
Wait,
sorry,
She's not
they
gonna
are-
shout at
wait.
y'all. Don't
No,
worry.
I'm not. It's not meant to be an insult, like, at your intelligence. It's just, I see things.
You just called somebody dumb and said
we are talking about.
You just said no offense, but you're dumb.
But we are
Okay.
talking about a generation that likes to eat Tide Pods. So
And bath salts
I'm
and
always-
stuff. Like, look, the
I'm
fact
always
that they're
indifferent when
willing
it
to
comes
put
to
down
talking
the
about
bath
generations.
salts and pick up an investment book is wonderful, is all I'm saying. That's what I'm
But
saying.
I mean, I get it, but it's like our parents' generation. They at some point they were not our parents, grandparents. They drunk as shit, driving with no seatbelts, fucking pregnant, and that was normal. Like that sounded normal in their mind. Like that was okay. So
I just don't think nowhere in the world we could justify imagine years from now. Yeah, our generation was
imagine years from now saying
Smoking.
a pregnant smoking lady fucking drinking a glass of wine. Imagine walking in the restaurant saying that shit. We all gonna lose our
Okay.
shit. Hey, is she pregnant? Is that a cigarette? Is that wine? Lady, so let's be serious. So
you right.
in fucking
Okay.
50 years they gonna talk about these dumbass kids. Sorry. But they eating Tide Pods, but do I think they're any dumber than what people were 50, 60 years ago? Nah, probably not.
Nah.
We'll get off topic. We're supposed to be talking about finances.
I think each generation has their thing that they're dumb about, and money management is
But we've been
this generation and next generation.
dumb
biggest
about
barrier.
that for years.
I think
Like,
as a people we've been dumb with that.
right, it's nothing. It's something that, like, say everybody always, you see it on Facebook, you see it on Instagram, you see it on everything. Like, man, I wish there was a time I wish I had a class where they taught me about, my finances or my credit score, this, that, and the third. You got civics and economics, but you don't have financial literacy.
Right.
Be
Which-
smart. Adulting 101.
Good news. So again, one of the reasons I started last year is because I found that the only financial literacy that was required of high school in North Carolina was civics and economics.
That's it.
So I looked up civics and economics,
That class
and
is
of the
so
10
easy.
topics, only 2 of which
So
had
easy.
anything to do with personal finance.
Mhm.
But this past June, the governor signed a bill to make a personal finance class required to graduate in North Carolina. So it'll be the 6th state to do that, because there are only 5 right now that do. I think South Carolina will be soon after. But the change is happening. I think people are starting to see how important it is,
Mhm.
right? But there are people that are against the bill. And the people that are against the bill are the ones that say, okay, well,
With the money?
well, no, they're technically using it as a social studies course. So if you're requiring another social studies course, then the issue is, do we combine civics and economics with US history, or do we combine US history with world history, or whatever? And so they're saying that they can't combine 2 courses that have so many topics into one semester. So typically, the issue with the bill is, right. So
Right.
that's one side of it, and there's also the issue of, okay, so now that you're requiring the class, who's gonna teach it? Is it gonna be a civics teacher? Is it gonna be a social studies teacher? Is that person going to be financially literate enough to teach financial literacy? So that's kind of where the bill is now, and
The
I'm
teachers
about to have
need
to
it
do
too.
a credit check to be a teacher.
But the teachers need it too. They'd probably be more interested in it than.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. You don't give those people a chance. Like, hey, if we made a financial literacy course and we sat y'all through, someone like you teaching the class to the adults first, so that they can teach it to the teachers, I think that would be a great idea.
yeah.
Like, everybody's worried about, how is it going to help them graduate, or where we gonna put it in at? Just put it there. I promise you, somebody will be like, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Figure out how it, you can figure out how it
So
works.
you mentioned earlier a book that you are putting out there. So tell us about your book and what it's about and the target audience.
Yeah, so, like I said before, I kind of felt like I was beating a dead horse with some of these kids, and I know for a fact that if I go in for an hour and a half, for an hour and a half I have them and they're hooked. But how do I keep them that way? How do I make sure that they're continuing to learn and retaining that information? So it was really important for me to come up with something that they can hold on to and that they can read through with their parents even and learn some stuff. So I created what's called the Money Club. It's a financial literacy guide for teenagers, and I tried to make it as far from a textbook as possible. So it's story-based. Every section comes from a different character's perspective. Every character comes from a different background, not necessarily a race background. It was important for me not to include race into the book because I didn't want, unfortunately, I'm gonna be honest here, right? I didn't, if I had the African-American student have, their dad was in prison, right? Then I'd be like, well, why the black kid gotta be the one?
Yeah.
with the dad?
Yeah, somebody's gonna do it.
Right, and I
Right.
didn't want that, but what I wanted was that I wanted every character to be able to relate to somebody reading it, right? So I didn't want you to relate to this person because she's quiet and reserved, but because it says she has brown hair and you have blonde hair, then you feel like there's a disconnect there. So even in the book, there are illustrations, there's graphs, there's pictures, but the characters themselves, the illustrations are just black and white. So, you make it what you want to make it, but you learn about credit, you learn about budgeting. So it was fun for me to write it. I'm not a writer though, so it was a long process. It took me a little longer than what I wanted it to, but it was fun, and it'll be out in January, so I'm excited about
That's
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Please let us know
I
when it
will.
does release, because we will definitely put that plug in.
Okay.
The majority of our readers and lookers.
Readers?
Sorry.
We got readers.
The majority of our watchers,
Yeah.
yes, our audience.
Viewers?
Why would they use audience?
What they won't say.
Watchers?
Coming 2023.
Watchers makes it sound like somebody is legit behind.
I said audience.
In the book, you said that after you said watchers. This is like hieroglyphics all over again.
If you've been watching this,
Move on.
Are we done?
I guess.
So the majority
I'm
of
going
our
back to
audience is, I think, outside of the high school range. But I really hope that they look at this and they're like, hey, I have a teenager, or I have kids who, like, I have 2 middle schoolers at the house now, and then my son is in elementary school.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Or
I
y'all
always
just got, lower reading levels and you need easier books.
why value.
Or you just like easier books.
But when I say it,
I'm-
I'm racist. I'm just.
I didn't say you was racist. I said you were mean. It's a difference. They expect me to be mean. But still, like she said, this book gonna come out in January. I'm still gonna go pick up a copy,
Yep.
whether it was for teenagers or not. Like I don't give a damn who it's for. It's not like it's an informative book.
Right.
Like if it can teach you something, I don't give a damn what the
It's gonna be
what the
right on
reading
my
level
bookshelf.
is.
It's a good
Well,
read.
yeah.
It's an easy read.
There you
So,
go.
That's good.
Even better.
Right. But I don't want it too technical, right? Because
There you go.
again, that's.
She didn't want to call y'all
But
dumb.
sometimes,
ass.
but not being funny, but sometimes it needs to be broken down, as they say,
Right.
Barney style.
Right.
Break it down so
Hey,
that
man, give it to me like a 5-year-old.
exactly, please.
Explain it to me like
And
I'm.
I'm not gonna sit up here and pretend like she didn't use the term whatever, like she didn't use this term.
She didn't
I
use
want
the
to
term
hear it
whatever.
in its lowest form, so I can be like, oh, okay, I get that.
She did not use the term whatever, by the way.
You know, y'all know what I mean. See, I ain't gonna get into it with Kev.
I fought for it. It's like a trap.
I'm
Every
just trying to
time.
keep the tangents to a minimal on this episode because we have guests.
You can go on a tangent.
I don't have any tangents to go on today. Actually, I'm pretty.
This was a good subject. I
I'm
really
pretty
like it.
alright. I'm pretty alright. Yeah, there's no reason. She spoke enough and clearly is well informed on her own topic, so there's no reason for me to go off on a tangent. Like, why would I steal the spotlight when we brought her here to give her,
It's true.
to allow her to,
No arguments.
see, right now I'm going on a tangent.
So,
So,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I did have one. So, what would you say the lowest age would be to start? Like you said you deal with middle schools, right?
Mhm.
So, would that be like? Would you go any lower than that, or would
Like
you,
I got a 7-year-old.
Absolutely.
Like, what would
right?
No,
you
even
recommend? I go about that?
so I initially wanted to just do high schoolers, right? But the more that I talked to the high schoolers and the more that I talked to parents and teachers and all that, I was like, okay, so I really need to go like earlier than this, right? So then I went to the middle school, and even then, if facts just starts growing crazy, I'd love to take it to elementary school because I think the earlier you learn it, the better, because you start to have this healthier relationship with money versus thinking like money, like problems, like
My
you
son
don't want to
thinks
think that way.
money, stuff,
Right.
money, spending. He said the other day, I just don't understand money. I said, you sure don't, right?
Yeah, but no, even starting as little as giving an allowance, it could be $1 of an allowance, right? But if you give your son $1 and then you take him to Five Below, and the first thing he wants to do is spend it, it's a perfect opportunity to talk about, okay, well, we can spend this, and then you won't have it anymore. Or you can save it, we can, you don't even have to talk about like banks or interest or anything, like, or you can save it, I'll give you $2 next week. And just kind of see where that conversation leads, right? You don't want them to think, I get, so I spend, and you want them to think about earning it and growing it more.
I tried that.
That's a good idea.
No,
My son
I
got
haven't
a debit card for Christmas. It's like green. It's called Green Light. It's kid friendly.
Oh.
So instead of him having cash, he has a checking account and a savings on that card. Anytime he gets money, I automatically put 50% of whatever he got into his savings account, and then he'll have his money that he can
Right.
spend anywhere. And if he's like out at the grocery store, or if he's with his dad for the summer, he can just use it, get something to eat, and then go about his day.
Right.
So now he's at the point where he's like, oh, I got good grades on my report card, because we don't do necessarily a weekly allowance, but like for grades, I'll be like, okay, if you get A's and B's, all A's and B's, then here you go, here's $40.
Right.
So he'll get to the point where he'll be like, oh, I got my report card, I have $40, and then he'll try to like go to Five Below, and he'll say he wants one football, and then he'll spend like $38. Like, how does that happen? So I'm like, but he wasn't with me. So in my defense, I didn't let him go spend 38 of his $40.
Mm-hmm.
But when he got back, I looked at his receipt and I was like, Jaden, how did you spend $38 of your money on your account? He was like, all right, this is what happened. I I got there and I needed 2 footballs. I needed one to practice with and one to play with. And I'm like, Jaden, they're both footballs. Like, whatever. I digress. So I feel like for him, it may be worthwhile for him to like go see your class, because I don't know how else to break it through to him.
Right, so I'd say 2 things. One, did you tell him about the 50% you were putting in savings, and did you explain to him why?
Yes.
Okay, so then when he goes and spends things, and this could be a little bit of a side topic, right? But I think oftentimes when kids spend a little bit more than they should, or when they get money they immediately want to spend it, is because of social media pressures and people always feeling like they have to have the next new thing, or things in general, right? There's a misconception with money and things, materialistic, right? So that's another conversation. It's kind of tough to get into that with financial literacy, although needing to be said, right? That, you know, having two footballs doesn't necessarily make you the cool kid in school.
Right.
And having the nicest shoes doesn't make you, you know, the best dressed. Like, have a good personality first. Like, make sure you like you first. And,
Right.
you know, make sure that you're not focusing on what other people are saying about you. Make sure you like you. You know, I think that conversation is often not had as well. Not saying that that's yours, but, you know, initially, that's kind of where the kids, so one of as an example, the budgeting game with Skittles, there's this one part you have to spend 4 Skittles to shop designer clothes. And this one gentleman in the class was like, I definitely have to have the designer clothes, so he spends 4 of his Skittles. So during the game, you have to take Skittles away, because stuff happens, right? Oftentimes you get a pay cut or whatever the case is. But he would not take those 4 Skittles off the designer clothes. He had to have designer clothes. And so we had the conversation about it, because no one else in the class, everyone else was like, oh no, I gotta make sure I get, you know, soap for my body. Like, I don't need it.
Damn clothes.
Right, so like he had designer clothes, but he didn't have a car, he was riding a bike. So I was like, having designer clothes.
Dumb as hell.
But that's not just his generation. Y'all know that's not his generation. Y'all are women.
I said
Y'all
our
know that's not his
generation
generation.
and moving forward, but at the end of the day, that was
Niggas my age right now. Got the shoes
he
that's on
riding
my
down
feet,
the bike.
got iPhones, got Macs, got iPads, and they on a cat bus this morning. Like,
It's somebody riding right now on a
he
Diva
ain't even
bike
got a bike.
in a Gucci down outfit. That's
He ain't even
dumb
got a
as
bike.
hell.
He walking
And that's what I'm saying.
on Smithfield Road with no fucking street lights. Cool as shit. Hey.
Cold as shit.
He's still cool
You
though.
wanted the black pyramid, because you wanted the black pyramid sweatsuit.
But no, man, she right.
It's,
Go ahead, what you
it's,
say?
that's why I say it's billionaires riding around in jalopies right now. And y'all can't take a second to buy some soap for your ass and put the clothes to the side. It's a shame.
Like,
They're gonna be dirty.
I ain't gonna shout out my job, but man, I see them people all day. Sometimes, like I've come up behind them, like at the ATM, some asshole that left their receipt, got like $60,000 in their checking account.
What?
They just walk past me, and their checking account. That's yes.
Not savings.
Not savings, like checking. And they only took out $20. That's all they took out was like $20.
Yep.
They just walked by me in some dad jeans and some fucking New Balances. Like y'all can walk around here like goddamn Gucci you want to, and again, you gonna be in a goddamn BMX.
Kevin probably looked at that receipt like.
I was like,
I'd be so mad.
I was like,
I do it too.
because I was like, Kevin, don't take the receipt. Kevin.
What you doing that?
Kevin, don't take the receipt. Like you be mad as hell, and it was payday.
Did you guys just hear the story that a guy went and took a very large deposit out?
Yes,
and the bank
I saw
teller
that.
robbed him?
The bank teller robbed him.
Wait.
Y'all tell me this
What?
Yeah.
because that was
Came out.
genius.
He made a withdrawal. Later, he got robbed by his bank teller. Like,
That's what I'm saying. I'm just probably seeing that and letting him
Oh
know.
hell no!
Oh man, come on.
There are.
Justin?
No, this ain't me.
didn't you give me my food earlier?
And that's probably what he said. He was like, no, this ain't me. Not, I don't know who Justin is. Nah, this ain't me.
No.
But no, man, I see those receipts all the time. like, y'all got it. Y'all figured this out. This is you don't give a shit what I think you look like or what I think you have. You don't care. And I told my wife, I said, I'm tired of meeting people and levels of life once I get there. I'm trying to meet you motherfuckers before I get there. Like, let me get the inside scoop before I get there. Now you're giving me the ways to stay there. Totally appreciate it. I'm not bagging anybody. Keep feeding me the secrets that I need to keep, succeeding.
Right.
But it's like, yeah, man, there are those that have figured it out. Like she said, the obsession with things and money and how we correlate that to actual success is dangerous amongst, as Courtney would say, the dumbass generation. Like, I guess that is the most dangerous thing.
Generation extra dumb.
Generational dumbasses. Y'all do really like stuff, and you'll use any form of payment to get it, and it's not always payment that you can get back or sustain, so to speak.
So I feel a little bit of a Kevin tangent coming on within myself, so I apologize in advance. So the thing, okay, I know you said in reference to your book, you didn't want to make it about race, but I feel like a part of it has to be looked at the race of things, because I feel like statistically speaking, we have a white family in this household and a black family in this household, right? Mm-hmm. The black family is like, normally speaking, I'm not saying this for everybody looking, but from my experience, what I have seen is parents who will look at their children, be like, all right, I did my job, you hit 18, you're at college, or you went the job route, my job is done. I did all I could do. Come back and visit, And then we come back and visit.
Sounds cold, but it's real.
It's like, okay, just kick them out.
Goodbye.
But then we have white family over here, and it's like, okay, Susie, Timothy, not Johnny, but Susie,
now that's
Timothy.
The racist
Johnny's
part.
black. We've already
Exactly.
Right.
That's the racist part of this. Johnny's got to be black. I've never established that decided that Johnny was
His
black.
mama's name was Keisha.
Y'all can go back and see what I said. What their race was. Never did. They said he was
But then
black.
wasn't his dad named Tyrone?
So
his mama named Keisha.
So Tyrone and Keisha can only be black people. Y'all heard it here first. Not from me. These racists.
So we have the white family who has taken the time to make sure that not only do their children have a car, but that car is getting paid for. They are paying it off for their child. They are nurturing them after high school, taking them out, even in college, like still helping to support them both financially, maybe not so much like supporting mentally and stuff, but at least financially. I've seen it where like people are present, but they're not present. They just kind of like throw money at it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I feel like something is to be said for those types of households, and looking at it from the outside in, it just seems like it's more so how a black family communicates. Like, I got 3 other kids to raise, my oldest that made it off to college, now I gotta focus on these 3. Mm-hmm. If that oldest one isn't helping raise the 3 behind them, So what do you say to, or I don't want to ask you if you see it more so like that, because I'm sure if you go to poverty communities, you see both white and black, and I don't get to see that. But how can I phrase my question? Well, Kevin already called me a racist 3 times in this episode.
Yeah, so continue to be a racist.
Have you seen the same like kind of trend where one family is ready to kick their kid out, so to speak? Like, it's either like fly or fall at this point.
So I always say there are 3 things that made me start facts. One of those 3 things was actually one of my swimmers not knowing how to fill out a check. And it was a white child, and both of his families were at home. So it wasn't like he was only living with his mom or only living with his dad. Mom was a teacher, dad was a business owner. And when he asked me, like, Coach, well, what goes here and what goes here? I looked at him and I was like, how do you not know? This is white parents. So it kind of came to me then that this financial literacy needs to be taught, among all races, right? Because just like you said, there are two ends of the spectrum, yes, but there's a spectrum, right? On the other hand, with this white family, like you were saying, oftentimes their kids also have financial problems because they were overshadowed. Like, I'm not gonna teach it to you, I'm just gonna do it for you.
Right.
So then they never actually learn it themselves. So they're still getting into student loan debt or credit card debt because, they're thinking it's just gonna come back. I'm gonna swipe and it's just gonna be there, right? Because my parents always did it for me, right? So I kind of realized that, yeah, this race has a lot of issues, but we can't negate the fact that they do as well. So it's something that needs to be taught, for everyone. And initially when I started, I actually just wanted to focus on student athletes. I was an athlete growing up. My dad was a financial advisor for professional athletes, so that was kind of where I wanted to hone in on. But then I started talking to, wannabe doctors and wannabe lawyers and wannabe engineers. And I thought, okay, well, if they're not learning it in high school and they go to college and they're kind of already on this fast track to med school or law school or whatever, there's no requirement to take a personal finance class. And they're going to, a lot more years of schooling, right? So a lot more student loan debt, having never been talked about money too. Do you know what I mean? So I just realized it's a human race issue, honestly, because you've got, these kids in this neighborhood that are just looking to rappers and athletes to get out of their situation. You got these kids that are just like, oh, my parents will just do it for me. So it's just finding the middle ground among all of them.
That was an awesome way to break it down.
And she wasn't racist.
She wasn't racist, but she has a lot of experience
Of not being racist.
of being able to speak like to both ends of the spectrum, as she said.
You got almost 30 years in this earth.
I come from a mixed race family. My dad is black and my mom is white. So I've seen, both. I see how my dad talks to me about money, although on the black side of it, right, and where he came from was the opposite side of the spectrum. And then from
Just
my
got racist.
mom's side of it, but it is what it is. He had his experience, and because of that, he became what he became to teach it to me.
The exception to the rule.
And there are those.
There are.
Yes.
Man, I just said I'm accepting to everybody's food.
Yeah, you something special, alright.
My mom would enough to tell me that for me to figure it out.
So I think that was a very great message, and I want to thank you so much for coming in to talk to us, because I really feel like our demographic should definitely look at this episode, and feel free to comment below and
Feel free to watch it more than once.
Because there's a lot of different messages, like, what's the name of your book again?
It's called The Money Club. It's a teenage guide to financial literacy.
And where can everybody find you?
Well, it'll be on Amazon. I'm talking to a few Barnes and Noble stores, trying to get it in there.
Okay.
I'd love to, kind of be everywhere in North Carolina, just because it's my hometown. I love it here.
And what's your contact information for people to get in touch with you if they have questions?
Yeah, my email is info@factsforyouthnc.com. My personal Instagram is @thejasmineamber, and then my Facts for Youth page is @_factsforyouth.
We're gonna make sure there are links
Yes.
down below so that y'all can get in touch with her. Please. And schools, once again.
Churches,
She
I mean,
needs
it's
help.
on churches now too. Youth
Schools,
groups at
churches,
Churches.
YMCA, youth groups, everybody needs
Help
to hear
her,
They
help
know.
you.
this. Hell, your business might want to do something one day. You're like, man, I know these students spending their paychecks every Friday, and they have no clue what to do with it. I'm tired of hearing about Tyrone and Keisha can't pay their bills and fix their credit. Little Johnny needed school clothes.
All three of them.
Full circle.
All three of them. Full
And
circle.
I just want to make it a point to let you guys know that this is someone who is offering her service and her knowledge. She has the experience. Y'all don't have to go turn $500 into $5,000. She's trying to help you for free. Like, you don't have to do anything but listen or read her book if you choose to. Like, at this point, you don't have to go out to one of those credit repair people that you knew back in high school was skipping school.
Scammers.
But I digress. All she's asking for is for us to help her help our future.
With that being said, this has been another wonderful episode of What They Won't Say. This is just Kevin.
UA.
We were joined with the lovely,
Jasmine Brown.
and this is your girl, Courtney Lynette. Until next time, you guys. Bye.